You wake up one morning, sunlight filtering through the curtains, ready to start your day. But within minutes of getting out of bed, a sudden wave of dizziness hits you. Your vision blurs, your right arm feels strangely heavy, and before you can call out, you collapse to the floor. This is not a nightmare. It's the terrifying reality of a morning stroke. And for thousands of seniors every year, it strikes without warning. The truth is, the morning hours are the most dangerous time for your brain's blood vessels. Most people assume strokes are random or caused only by long-term issues like high cholesterol, smoking, or poor diet. But what many seniors don't realize is that certain seemingly harmless morning habits can quietly set the stage for a blood clot or vessel rupture right when your body is least prepared to handle it. As a brain doctor, I've seen far too many patients who started their day with routines they believed were healthy, only to end up in the emergency room before breakfast. These small daily choices made in the first hour after waking can make the difference between a safe, energized morning and a life-altering health crisis. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit that button and turn on the bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you enjoy this video, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 to let me know how I can make better content for you. Today, I'm going to walk you through 9 common morning habits that could silently double your stroke risk, and what you should do instead to protect your brain and your life. One of the most overlooked but dangerous mistakes seniors make is starting the day without a single sip of water. You might think I'm not thirsty yet, or I'll have coffee first, but after 6 to 8 hours of sleep, your body is in a mild state of dehydration. And for an aging brain, that's a problem far more serious than dry mouth. Medically speaking, dehydration thickens the blood. Think of it like syrup versus water. The thicker the blood, the harder it is to push through narrow aging arteries. Overnight, your heart rate and blood pressure naturally rise just before waking, a built-in biological rhythm. But if your blood is thicker at the same time, your vessels are already under pressure. The risk of forming a clot skyrockets. This is one of the main reasons strokes are more common in the early morning hours. I remember treating Mrs. Lang, a 72-year-old retired librarian. She was an active woman, walking her dog every morning, never smoked, and always ate a healthy breakfast. But one day she decided to skip her morning glass of water because she was running late. Instead, she went straight to her usual strong black coffee. 15 minutes later, she collapsed in her kitchen. The scan revealed a clot in her left middle cerebral artery, a classic morning stroke. She survived, but she lost partial movement in her right hand and struggled with speech for months. It's important to understand that dehydration isn't just about not drinking enough. Age reduces your body's thirst signals, meaning you might not feel thirsty, even when your cells are desperate for fluid. Combine that with diuretic medications common for blood pressure or heart conditions, and your morning blood volume can drop dangerously low. So what's the fix? As soon as you wake up, before coffee, before breakfast, drink a full glass of water, ideally room temperature, to avoid shocking your system. Adding a small pinch of mineral-rich sea salt or a squeeze of lemon can help replenish electrolytes, especially if you're on diuretics. This simple habit keeps your blood flowing more smoothly, reducing the strain on your heart and brain. And if you think skipping water is bad, wait until you hear what happens when your first meal of the day is loaded with sodium, a hidden trigger for dangerous blood pressure spikes. For many seniors, breakfast is a cherished ritual toast with butter, a warm bowl of instant noodles, maybe even a slice of ham or a plate of pickled vegetables. But here's the problem. Those foods are often loaded with sodium, and in the morning that salt can be a silent accelerator for a stroke. When you consume high amounts of sodium, your body retains fluid to dilute it. That extra fluid volume puts more pressure on your already stiffening blood vessels. Now imagine this happening at the exact time your blood pressure is naturally peaking between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. For someone over 60, whose arteries may already be less elastic, the result can be a dangerous surge that weakens vessel walls or triggers a rupture in the brain. I'll never forget Mr. Park, a 68-year-old retired bus driver. He prided himself on eating light breakfasts, a quick bowl of instant ramen or kimchi with rice. He thought it was healthy because it was small and low in fat. One winter morning, about 20 minutes after eating, he felt a sudden crushing headache and couldn't move the left side of his body. In the ER, his blood pressure was 210/110, dangerously high. The culprit, his breakfast contained over 800 milligrams of sodium, more than the recommended daily amount for someone with hypertension. The medical truth is simple. High sodium intake stiffens arteries, increases blood viscosity, and disrupts the delicate balance of electrolytes that control heart rhythm and vessel tone. Over time, this raises the risk not just for stroke, but for heart attacks, kidney damage, and cognitive decline. What makes the morning particularly risky is that your blood vessels haven't fully adapted to being awake yet. They're still in a semi-constricted state from sleep, so they can't expand as well to handle a sudden influx of salty fluid. This means a sodium-heavy breakfast can cause a sharper and more dangerous pressure spike compared to the same meal eaten later in the day. If you want to protect your brain, start by rethinking breakfast. Swap instant noodles or salty pickles for fresh fruit with plain yogurt, unsalted oatmeal with berries, or eggs with leafy greens. If you must have savory foods, choose low-sodium versions and rinse canned or pickled items to wash away some of the salt. And if you think salt is a problem, the next morning habit is a double assault, one that combines 2 stimulants to constrict your arteries within minutes. It's a common sight, a senior sitting at the kitchen table, a steaming mug of coffee in one hand, a cigarette in the other. For some, this combination is a decades-old ritual. It's comforting, it's familiar, and it's quietly wreaking havoc on their arteries every single morning. Here's why this pairing is particularly dangerous after 60. Nicotine from a cigarette causes immediate constriction of blood vessels. This tightening limits blood flow, especially in already narrowed or stiffened arteries. Within seconds, your heart has to work harder to pump blood through these smaller channels. Then comes the coffee. Caffeine stimulates the release of adrenaline, which raises your heart rate and further increases blood pressure. It's like hitting the gas pedal on an engine that's already under strain. I remember Mr. Hahn, a 64-year-old retired mechanic. He'd been smoking since his early 20s and never saw a reason to stop. Each morning he'd light up while sipping 2 strong espressos. One morning he stood up from the table and immediately felt his vision split double images, dizziness and weakness on his left side. At the hospital, imaging showed a clot in the posterior circulation of his brain, an area responsible for balance and vision. The combination of nicotine and caffeine had significantly narrowed his arteries just as his morning blood pressure peak hit. That perfect storm allowed the clot to form and block a vital vessel. Medically, the combination of nicotine and caffeine is a double hit to your cardiovascular system. Nicotine triggers vasoconstriction, reduces oxygen delivery to the brain, and damages the inner lining of blood vessels over time. Caffeine, especially in high doses, elevates catecholamines, stress hormones that tighten vessels further and promote platelet aggregation, which increases clotting risk. And the morning hours. They amplify the damage. After waking, your body is naturally in a procoagulant state. Your blood is more likely to clot. Add vessel constriction from nicotine, plus the surge in adrenaline from caffeine, and you've created the perfect environment for a stroke. If quitting smoking entirely feels overwhelming, start by delaying your first cigarette until after breakfast and your morning water. Gradually push it later in the day, while also reducing coffee strength and volume. For some, switching to green tea can provide a gentler caffeine boost without the same vascular strain. But as bad as this duo sounds, the next morning habit might shock you even more. It's something sweet, comforting, and widely believed to be harmless, yet it can inflame your blood vessels before you've even finished the first bite. For decades, breakfast cereal commercials have told us that a quick bowl of cereal or a sweet pastry with coffee is the perfect way to start the day. But for seniors, beginning the morning with a sugar surge is one of the fastest ways to inflame blood vessels and prime the body for a stroke. When you eat refined carbohydrates like white bread, sugary cereal, pancakes with syrup or pastries, your blood sugar spikes sharply. In response, your body releases a flood of insulin to bring it back down. But here's the hidden danger. This roller coaster of blood sugar and insulin triggers inflammation inside the lining of your arteries. Over time, this damages the endothelium, the delicate tissue that helps blood vessels expand and contract smoothly. I treated Mrs. Choi, a 70-year-old retired piano teacher, who believed her breakfast of white toast with jam and a glass of orange juice was healthy because it was light and low in fat. One morning, about 40 minutes after eating, she suddenly felt numbness in her right cheek and weakness in her right arm. At the hospital, she was diagnosed with a transient ischemic attack, a mini-stroke that can be a warning sign of a major one. Blood tests showed extremely high triglyceride levels after meals, and her arteries showed signs of chronic inflammation. The culprit. Years of starting her day with high-sugar foods that kept her blood vessels under constant stress. Scientifically, high-sugar breakfasts do 2 dangerous things. First, they promote acute inflammation, which makes the walls of your arteries stickier, encouraging platelets to clump and form clots. Second, they increase oxidative stress, producing free radicals that further injure vessel walls. For older adults whose arteries are already less resilient, this damage can accumulate quickly. Morning makes it worse because your body's cortisol levels are naturally higher upon waking. Cortisol makes blood sugar spikes even sharper, meaning that a sugary breakfast hits your system harder than the same meal eaten later in the day. This combination of high cortisol, rapid glucose rise, and inflammation can create the perfect setup for a clot to form. To protect yourself, swap refined carbs for slow-digesting options like steel-cut oats, whole-grain bread, or eggs with vegetables. Pairing carbohydrates with protein and healthy fats like yogurt with nuts or avocado, toast with an egg, can slow the absorption of sugar and keep blood vessels calmer. And if you think sugar is the worst morning offender, wait until you hear about the next habit, one that might seem like a sign of dedication to fitness, but could shock your brain's blood vessels into crisis. You might think that jumping straight into an intense workout first thing in the morning is a great way to stay fit, burn calories, and keep your heart strong. And for younger bodies, it often is. But for seniors, going from complete rest to sudden high-intensity exercise without any warm-up can be a dangerous shock to the cardiovascular system, especially for the brain's delicate blood vessels. Here's why, when you wake up, your blood vessels are still in a slightly constricted state. Blood pressure is already on the rise due to your body's circadian rhythm, and your heart rate is relatively low. If you immediately demand high performance like sprinting on a treadmill, lifting heavy weights, or doing vigorous aerobics, your heart has to pump much harder, and your blood pressure can spike dramatically within seconds. For arteries that may already be stiffened or narrowed by plaque, this sudden surge can cause vessel tears or dislodge a clot. I recall Mr. Yamamoto, a 66-year-old retired engineer who prided himself on his morning discipline. Every day at 6 a.m., he'd jump out of bed, slip on his running shoes, and run hard for 20 minutes, no warm-up. No stretching. One morning, halfway through his usual route, he collapsed on the sidewalk. A passerby called for help, and in the ER we discovered he'd suffered a hemorrhagic stroke. The rapid spike in blood pressure had ruptured a small, weakened vessel in his brain. From a medical standpoint, sudden intense exertion after waking increases not just blood pressure, but also intracranial pressure, the pressure inside your skull. At the same time, the demand for oxygen in your muscles skyrockets, diverting blood flow away from the brain temporarily. For older adults, this creates a dangerous imbalance between oxygen supply and demand in critical brain tissue. The safer approach: begin with a gentle warm-up of 5 to 10 minutes. Slow walking, light stretching, or mobility exercises to allow your vessels to dilate gradually and your heart rate to rise in a controlled manner. If you prefer more intense workouts, save them for mid to late morning, when your body is more physiologically ready to handle stress. And while sudden exercise can shock your circulatory system, the next habit we'll discuss delivers a different kind of shock, one that comes from the temperature of the water in your shower. Cold showers have become a trend, praised for boosting alertness, improving circulation, and even strengthening immunity. While they may have benefits for younger, healthy individuals, for seniors, especially those with cardiovascular issues, plunging into icy water first thing in the morning can be a dangerous gamble. When cold water hits your skin, your body reacts instantly. Blood vessels in the skin and extremities constrict to conserve heat, forcing blood toward your core. This reflex, called vasoconstriction, causes a rapid spike in blood pressure. For someone over 60, whose arteries may already be stiffened or partially blocked, that sudden surge can strain the heart and put extra pressure on brain vessels. If there's already a weak spot in the vessel wall, this shock can trigger a rupture or clot formation. One patient, Mr. Lee, age 71, learned this the hard way. He had read an article about the benefits of cold showers and decided to make it part of his morning routine. One winter morning, he stepped into his usual cold spray immediately after getting out of bed. Within seconds, he felt a pounding in his head and a wave of nausea. By the time his wife found him, he was slurring his speech and unable to move his right leg. In the hospital scans revealed a hemorrhagic stroke. A blood vessel in his brain had burst under the sudden pressure increase. From a medical perspective, cold water exposure triggers the cold shock response, which not only raises blood pressure, but also stimulates the release of stress hormones like adrenaline and noradrenaline. These chemicals further tighten blood vessels and increase heart rate, creating a perfect storm for someone already in the most vulnerable hours for stroke. For seniors who enjoy the invigorating feeling of cold water, moderation and timing are key. Instead of starting with freezing water, begin your shower with warm or lukewarm water, then finish with a brief cool rinse if you wish. Better yet, reserve cold showers for midday when your body is fully awake and blood pressure is more stable. But even if you avoid cold water shocks, there's another morning habit that can be equally risky. One that doesn't involve doing anything at all, skipping breakfast entirely. In recent years, intermittent fasting has become a popular health trend, with claims that skipping breakfast can help control weight, improve metabolism, and even extend lifespan. While some benefits may exist for certain people, seniors need to approach this habit with caution, especially when it comes to stroke risk. When you wake up, your body has already been fasting for 8 to 10 hours. Blood sugar levels are naturally lower, and your body is running primarily on stored energy. For younger individuals, this isn't a big problem. But in older adults, prolonged fasting can destabilize blood pressure and blood sugar regulation. Here's why this matters. Without food, your blood pressure can dip too low when you stand up, a condition called orthostatic hypotension. This sudden drop reduces blood flow to the brain, sometimes triggering dizziness, fainting, or in extreme cases, ischemic events, especially if a vessel is already narrowed. On the flip side, if your body responds to low blood sugar by releasing stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, you can get a sudden rise in blood pressure and heart rate. This roller coaster puts extra strain on already fragile blood vessels. I treated Mrs. Fujimoto, a 69-year-old retired school teacher, who decided to try skipping breakfast after reading about fasting benefits online. On the third day of her new routine, she stood up quickly after making her morning tea and collapsed before she could take a step. In the ER, she was diagnosed with a small ischemic stroke. The combination of low blood pressure from fasting and a brief drop in brain blood flow when standing was enough to trigger the event. From a medical standpoint, seniors are more vulnerable to these swings because aging reduces the body's ability to maintain stable blood pressure and glucose levels. Many also take medications like diuretics, beta blockers, or blood pressure drugs that make them even more sensitive to fasting-related drops. If you want the benefits of a lighter morning, there's a safer approach. Instead of skipping breakfast entirely, try a small, balanced meal like a boiled egg with whole grain toast or Greek yogurt with berries to give your body steady fuel without overloading your system. This gentle start stabilizes blood flow to the brain and keeps your vessels calmer during the morning hours. And while skipping breakfast can cause subtle circulatory stress, the next habit we'll cover isn't subtle at all. It's something that can send your stress hormones soaring before you've even left the kitchen table. Many seniors begin their day by turning on the news, checking social media, or scrolling through their phones to catch up before breakfast. While staying informed is important, bombarding yourself with negative headlines, alarming updates, or heated online debates first thing in the morning can set off a stress response that harms your cardiovascular system. When you encounter emotionally charged information, your brain activates the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal HPA axis, releasing cortisol and adrenaline. These stress hormones cause your heart rate to rise, your blood pressure to spike, and your blood vessels to constrict, the same physiological response designed for fight or flight. But if this happens daily, especially during the already vulnerable morning hours, it can gradually wear down the elasticity of your arteries and increase your risk for stroke. I recall Mr. Kim, a 73-year-old retired accountant who had a strict morning routine: coffee, a high-volume news channel, and his smartphone in hand. Every morning, he'd get visibly agitated over politics or world events, muttering to himself and gripping his coffee mug tightly. One morning, while watching a breaking news alert about a stock market crash, he suddenly felt intense pressure in his head and blurred vision. He was rushed to the ER with a hypertensive crisis blood pressure, over 220 systolic, and an early-stage ischemic stroke. From a medical perspective, chronic morning stress raises baseline inflammation in the blood vessels, makes platelets more sticky, and accelerates the buildup of arterial plaque. This is particularly dangerous when combined with other stroke risk factors like hypertension, diabetes, or atrial fibrillation. To protect your vascular health, delay stress-inducing activities until later in the day after your body has stabilized from the natural morning blood pressure peak. If you enjoy reading or watching the news, pair it with a calming routine, gentle stretching, soft music, or a short walk to buffer the stress response. Some seniors even switch to uplifting or neutral content in the morning, reserving heavier topics for midday. And now that you know the 9 morning habits that could silently double your stroke risk, let's finish by putting it all together with a safe, brain-protective morning blueprint. You can start tomorrow. We've covered 9 seemingly small morning habits that can quietly put your brain at risk. dehydration, high-sodium breakfasts, the cigarette and coffee combo. Sugar-laden starts, sudden, intense exercise. Cold showers, skipping breakfast, and stress overload. Each of these alone can increase your vulnerability to a stroke. Combined, they create a dangerous environment for your arteries during the hours when your body is naturally at its most fragile. The core message is simple, but powerful. Aging changes how your body interacts with food, temperature, activity, and stress. After 60, your blood vessels may be less elastic, your blood pressure regulation less precise, and your recovery from inflammation slower. This means that what felt harmless in your 30s or 40s can have serious consequences today. But knowledge is power, and you can use it to your advantage. Here's your safe morning blueprint to protect your brain and keep your energy steady all day. Start with hydration. Drink a full glass of room temperature water within 10 minutes of waking. Add a pinch of mineral-rich salt or a squeeze of lemon if you take diuretics or sweat heavily. Choose a balanced breakfast. Pair protein, healthy fats, and slow-digesting carbs, eggs with vegetables. Oatmeal with berries or whole-grain toast with avocado. Warm up gently. If you plan to exercise in the morning, begin with 5 to 10 minutes of light movement before increasing intensity. Skip extreme temperature shocks. Use warm water for most of your shower, adding only a brief cool rinse if desired. Delay stress exposure. Reserve news or emotionally charged topics for later in the morning. Start the day with music, light, reading, or gentle outdoor time. Moderate caffeine. If you enjoy coffee, limit it to 1 moderate cup and avoid pairing it with nicotine. Control sodium early in the day. Opt for fresh, unprocessed foods in the morning, reserving higher sodium items for midday when your body can handle them better. Brain-safe morning foods to add to your rotation include blueberries, rich in antioxidants, avocado, healthy fats for vessel health, walnuts, omega-3s to reduce inflammation, spinach, magnesium for blood pressure, regulation, chia seeds, fiber and healthy fats, and plain Greek yogurt protein for stable blood sugar. By making these adjustments, you're not just avoiding danger, you're actively strengthening your brain's defenses. Every morning becomes an opportunity to lower your risk of stroke, improve circulation, and set the tone for a healthier, more vibrant day. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, so you never miss another health tip made just for you. Your mornings are powerful. Make them work for you, not against you.